G'day. So it's happened. Slowson has been demoted to the slow Bulls. So I want to probably break this up to what I think about it in the first little section and how Red Bull have gone about this. You can see probably where I'm going there from my laugh. How I think Yuki will do in that car, and how I think Liam will go now that he's back in the slow Bull. Is it 30 seconds yet? Can't see. Yeah, we're 30 seconds in, I can swear now. Let's see how he goes in that shit Bull. Alright, first off, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. This is Helmut Marko's Red Bull being Helmut Marko's Red Bull. Why do I say Helmut Marko's Red Bull? Well, I think Christian Horner is very much in control of the day-to-day stuff that goes on the pit wall, team, that sort of stuff. But this has been a team divided since Hornberg got his helmet out last year, and was really covered up. Since then, Jos Verstappen at least has been very much in the Helmut Marko camp, and we kind of saw how that played out at the end of last year. We've been seeing that for a while. Jos has been very, very critical of that Red Bull haven't done enough to support his son in the car, and I think that's where how we've ended up now. With such a, which way are we going to go here? We're going to go right today. Very much how we've ended up with this car that only Max can seem to tame. Danny Rick saw the writing on the wall. I think it was Kota in Danny Rick's second last season with the team that Christian Horner came around and said we can really build a team around Max. Now it's Danny Rick, who was the, let's face it, other than Verstappen, the last successful product of the Red Bull program to actually be successful at Red Bull. Obviously we got Carlos, who's gone to be successful elsewhere, but Danny Rick's the last one, and Jos, and Max, that's it. This lauded Red Bull program, all these juniors that have come through over the years. See what we've got out there now. We've got Albon, we've got Gasly, we've got Lawson, we've got Tsunoda. I mean, Tsunoda was Honda backed, but not anymore. I mean, Honda apparently, if you listen to what's being said, Honda are bankrolling Yuki this year and helping out Red Bull, but that's more as a personal Tsunoda sponsor than a powertrain sponsor, especially with the transition to Ford next year. Honda want to divest themselves of that. Who's been responsible for the driver academy? That's Helmut Marko, and I think since the Christian Horner controversy, Helmut's been very much the guy pulling the strings behind the scenes at Red Bull. Red Bull got a reputation for this brutality. We know, I mean, the guys I've just mentioned. It turns out if you go back and look at it, Gasly wasn't all that bad, or Albon really. I mean, were they right up there? No. Would they have got consistent points finishes? Yeah, probably. Would they have been as good as Sergio when he first came into the team, when Sergio was obviously at the peak of his powers after that obviously constant confidence boosting win in the pink Mercedes that year? No, not quite. But then that again coincides with those pleas from Jos at the Monaco fiasco, which was a 300 IQ big brain play by Sergio there to get on the grid in front of Max. Since then, that car's been strangely difficult to drive for the other driver. Who knows why? Couldn't possibly tell. I don't think it's too much of a surprise that those two things are correlated together. Now, people will tell me it's a Formula One conspiracy theory. Like I said in an earlier video, there's no conspiracy conspiracies in Formula 1, just shit that happens. And this shit is obviously very much happening at the moment. So it doesn't come too much of a surprise to anyone that that Liam's been sacked here, because that car seems to be impossible to tame for anyone for Verstappen. Now Hornbags came out and said the car's not designed around Verstappen. Yeah, I call bullshit on that one, especially with Helmut Marko's comments of just telling Liam just drive the bloody car and not worry about anything else. That's kind of not how it works. We've seen Lewis Hamilton have troubles with cars that haven't suited his driving style. We've seen Danny Rick have troubles with cars that haven't suited his driving style. Carlos on and off in the Ferrari, even though Carlos seems to be one of the more adaptable guys on the grid. This stuff matters. And now since Ralph Schumacher was actually on the bloody ball for once, actually I did call Ralph out in a recent video. Someone has pointed out that Ralph's normally pretty accurate with things if his nephew's not involved. When his nephew's involved, that's when he likes to make shit up. So, you were spot on, Ralph, I apologise. You were still mid though, mate. Yeah, so since Ralph called, drop this bombshell, I'm not sure how quickly Red Bull wanted to drop this, that Yuki was going to be driving at Suzuka, but Yuki is now driving at Suzuka. I'm not surprised. I think Helmut Marko's lost the plot. I think the way that they've burnt through all these young drivers over the last few years. I mean, this is not the first desperate thing they did. They've brought 2 drivers back from the dead. They brought Albon back after they'd previously cut him, and they brought Cassidy back in. Was it Cassidy? The New Zealand fella. His name escapes me at the moment. I mean, WEC World Champion, and I call myself a motor racing enthusiast, and I can't remember his name. Hartley, that's the one. Yeah, and Formula 1's aren't his jam. Boy's quick in a wet car, but wet cars are different. They're set up to suit 3 different drivers, so the car's got to be probably more neutral than a Formula 1 needs to be set up. To be on the cutting edge of the Formula 1, that needs to work for both drivers. And there's a Red Bull for some time now, well, pretty much since Danny Rick left, has not worked for both drivers. The gap between Danny Rick and Max could be put down to the fact that Max is a generational talent, no matter what you think of the arrogant little cloggy. He's a generational talent, and you can put a couple of tenths, 3 tenths down to that. The rest of it, since then, and especially since Joss has become more and more prevalent in the media and using whatever pull he's got in the garage, it's been more of a problem for who's been in that second car to be competitive, never mind keep up. If I was a shareholder in Red Bull Racing, I'd be interested to know about when Dr. Marko was going to retire, and when he gets his outdated view on how things should be done out of the goddamn paddock. This also leaves Red Bull in the problem now that what are they going to do if Yuki's slow as well? I mean, Yuki came out before all this dropped and said, yeah, sure, why not? Car's quicker. Why wouldn't I want to drive it? That is the most poison chalice of poison chalice seats that's been in Formula 1 for a long time. I just hope Yuki does well. Which brings me on to the next section, I guess, is how do I think Yuki's going to go? Yuki is not the hot-headed, angry little man that he was when he first came onto the grid. I mean, again, that was I followed his Formula 2 career. I didn't think he was that good, but I thought he was quick enough, especially considering the crowd that he was racing against at the time, like the likes of Norris and Co and Leclerc over his time in the junior formulas. Not only do I hope he goes alright, I think he'll go alright. Do I think that he'll be up Verstappen's chuff every race? No, I don't. Do I think he's going to push him in qualifying? Absolutely not. Do I think he can be that consistent within a couple of tenths? I'm going to push for podiums if the McLarens drop the ball and be a reasonably reliable rear gunner for Max. Yeah, I do. I think he can do that. A lot of people have pointed since Danny Rick come to the team that, and Yuki himself has said that he learnt a lot from Danny Rick about how to deal with crap and how to just focus on his driving more than, what am I trying to say? How to conduct himself with a more calm demeanour, both over the radio to the press, not be the whingy little shit that he was when he first came onto the grid. I think he's been pretty consistent for the last 3 years, and I think he should have gotten that drive. I don't know, perhaps they were scared if he did well he would jump ship somewhere when Honda starts supplying engines, and give it a couple of seasons of this new rule cycle, perhaps Honda will be supplying more than one team on the grid, and I might be worried that Yuki was going to get poached. He's beat Danny Rick. He broke even with Lawson. Probably beaten by Albon, to be fair, when they were there, but did alright against Gasly. Again beaten because Gasly got that fluke win and that sort of stuff. But I think he'll go alright. I think it's great for motorsport in Japan that in a competitive car, or reasonably competitive car, let's say, Japan now have Yuki Tsunoda to get behind this race, as well as Iwata taking an FP1 session as well in the shit ball. It should be a great weekend in Japan, and I think it might be, it's not a good thing for Red Bull, I think, it's the focus on them, but it might be a good thing for Max, is that the focus won't be on him this race. Not a bad spot for a walk, eh? Lucky to be living in this part of the world. So, Liam Lawson, back in the shit ball for this week. All I can say is that, look, I think he'll go okay. That shit ball seems to be pretty benign to drive. And look, I hope for his career's sake that he goes okay. As you'll know from my previous videos, I don't particularly rate Slowson. He's had, I think he's got another Nick DeVries thing. He's had a couple of good races in a fill-in role with little to no pressure, and the second that there was a bit of pressure applied, he's dropped the ball. Is that car hard to drive? Yeah, it is, probably. Is it back of the grid 2 races in a row hard to drive? No. Was he compromised in qualifying because of issues in free practice? Yep. In Australia, absolutely he was. No real. So you only get one before the sprint in Japan. Yep. In China, sorry. Yep. You only got one free practice session. I get it. Do I think he can do a job in that shit ball until one of the other Red Bull juniors comes through? Yep. But I also think that his career is done. If I was him, I'd be looking for a WEC or an IndyCar drive for next year. I'd be looking now. I'd be doing everything I can to prove myself a good teammate and bring young Hajar along a little bit, and just shut the hell up and stop with this false bravado in the media. It's like, you beat Yuki in the junior formula, alright, not by that much though, mate. You didn't really beat Yuki last year, and you had one good result the year before at Singapore that set you apart from Yuki that year. my advice to you, Liam, would be concentrate on your own game. And you have, what is it now, 24 race season? So you have 22 races in the shop window now to get yourself a drive for next year. I suppose there is Cadillac in the offing, but one of the criticisms coming from Red Bull, I mean, admittedly this is after Helmut Marko told him to just shut up and drive the car and not worry about the technical side of things, was that he didn't have the experience to provide the feedback to develop the car. Again, let's get back to Danny Rick. I know I'm simping for Danny Rick, but just bear with me. There's no coincidence that from when Danny Rick went into that shit bull, that it was less shit and more bull. You can argue about that until the cows come home if you like, but it just is what it is. Yuki said he learnt so much on Danny on how to set up a car and how to give feedback and that sort of stuff. And if Danny was willing to do it, and I don't think he was, I would have had him back in that shit bull this year, and he's who I would have had with Isaac Hadjar, and I would have had Yuki in the main team from the start. There's a lot to be said for having a cool experienced head to teach you the nuances of Formula 1 next to you, I think. And I think the likes of Gabriel Bortoletto will learn a lot from Hulkenberg. I think Hadjar would have learnt a lot from Tsunoda. Alright, I hope Ollie Behrman learns from Festiesti, but Festiesti doesn't have the reputation for being a particularly good teammate. I mean, he finished 5th in the last race after the disqualification, so that's pretty good. And likewise, I think Jack Dillon's probably got a lot to learn from Gasly, even though I think both of those boys are under a lot of pressure for their drives. So it'll be interesting to see coming on how Liam Lawson-Gard does. I think he'll break even with Hadjar. That's my prediction. So where does all this leave Red Bull? We're looking pretty fucking stupid, really. I think a fair few of us thought that we all saw the writing on the wall, but when Liam was actually announced as the driver, we all thought, really? Why wasn't Yuki put in the car in the first place? Talked about that already. But if Lawson goes well and breaks even with Hadjar, let's face it, and because I think both Hadjar and Yuki were already getting the most out of that shit bull, and Yuki fails at the big team, the whole thing's just a farce, isn't it? They can't keep saying they haven't designed the car around Max if that happens. And even Max himself is saying that it's not the driver, it's the car. Now, part of that might have been, I think deep down, Max did want Danny Rick back at the team because he knew he'd have a reliable rear gunner and someone that could provide feedback for car development and that sort of stuff. And maybe they'd actually listen. There's no Adrian Newey to pull them out of the shit. They've had a brain skill drain over the last couple of years. Dan Fallows, who's not there anymore, but Dan Fallows went to Aston Martin and a couple of other high profile people leaving. Even old mate with the dreadlocks in the garage, he's retired this year. So there's a lot of personnel and high level people there and vital linchpins at the Red Bull team that have left. Rumours to be true, a lot of it's because of the way Hornbag and or Marko run things, and this just adds more high octane fuel to the already raging dumpster fire that is the Red Bull racing program at the moment across both teams. Joe Ott would have saved a lot of dramas of this if instead of doubling down on this whole junior team concept, which they're the only people that are allowed to have a junior team, by the way, which is now even more and more dubious by the operating base being moved essentially from Italy onto the Red Bull campus now. Why are they allowed to have a feeder team? Regardless of whether it's allowed or not, it's making them look very fucking stupid now. Yeah, only one. So what we got? 2 race winners, 3 race winners if you count Danny Rick, and Max himself, out of all the drivers that have been through there. And we're talking some pretty good drivers and other formers. We're talking Buemi, we're talking Rossi, we're talking I forget his name, Jean-Eric Verne, all had a go in those Red Bull in the Toro Rosso days. None of them deemed good enough. All of them have pretty much gone on to be rapid in other forms of motorsport. And yet they're still shopping outside of their pool to get the drivers in. I mean, if the rumours are true, Helmut even went and had a chat to Flavio about how much for Colapinto. I mean, talk about replacing one untested driver with another untested driver, bloody hell. Colapinto's got even less experience than Lawson, and had what, a couple of good results, or he beat Albon, which got Albon on my fraud list for a little bit. Albon since removed himself from there, but Argentinian Santa brings money with him. We know you. We knew Sergio brought money with him. That's probably why he lasted so long and got given that long contract after a bad season. Yeah, look, it's just Red Bull can't afford to look any more stupid, because where it will leave him, if Yuki looks bad in this car as well, it'll leave him without Max Verstappen in the long run. I have no doubt that Toto, actually I've no doubt that most of the team principals would stab their current number 1 in the back if it got Max Verstappen in their car. I probably would. I'm a pretty scrupulous operator when I'm playing computer games. For players on Football Manager, I mean, plug to my old Football Manager content on this channel. But yeah, I'd do it. I'd go full Judas or full Brutus. That's probably the right one, isn't it? And absolutely stab him in the back, stab my current in the back, and get that generational talent that is Max Verstappen in my car. What this does do though is it completely puts pay to my theory that Red Bull are doing this to get more tunnel time. I'm happy to admit when I was wrong. I think I might have been on this one. Anyway, only time will tell how we're going to go this weekend. Final predictions. Look, I'm going to give Yuki all the benefit of the doubt here possible. I'm going to say Yuki P8 at the back of Formula 1, and I'm going to give Lawson P11, somewhere up near the front of Formula 1.5. So a quick thank you to those of you that have been watching my content and enjoy it so far. Good view durations actually, like people watching 17-18 minutes out of a 20-minute rant video. Quite really happy with it. So drop a comment, let me know what else you want me to talk about on the channel. I mean, do you want me to, I'll follow NASCAR, do you want me to do a NASCAR rundown and do like a weekly wheels wind up or something? Oh, there's me with the alliteration again, stop it. One thing I might be doing is moving the Formula 1 content to a dedicated Formula 1 channel. I do actually put stuff on the gaming side on this. I was hoping the existing subscribers might give this a bit of a kick-off, and it has. But I am thinking about moving it, so I might end up re-uploading everything to a secondary channel. But yeah, if you've got any other ideas, you know, they're probably the 2 motorsport series, or 3 motorsport series I follow. I follow the bikes as well. I mean, how good's Marc Marquez been so far? That boy, it's going to be quick. this year on that Ducati, gonna be hard to beat. But anyway, if you do like my ramblings, get the like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Yeah, hit that notification bell, and have a good day, keep smiling, and I'll see you next time.